What's up, everybody? My name is Kina, and I cover business, personal finance, and investing. I love making these videos. For years, I'd wake up every morning, head downstairs to consume an unhealthy amount of caffeine, and then make the long commute back upstairs to my office and basically spend the next 10 or so hours researching finance and the stock market. I hit my goal of having $200,000 invested in the stock market earlier this year, and I decided it was time to shift the focus off of myself and on to helping others. My intention is to help increase financial literacy and help other folks tackle their financial goals. Today, we're talking credit cards, specifically which ones to start out with if you have no credit, limited credit, or bad credit. We're going to touch on why good credit is so important, what to look for in a credit card when first starting out, and then my top 5 suggestions for cards to get. Make sure that you stick around to the end so that you don't miss any of the key factors to look at when getting started with credit cards. I'm a big proponent of responsible credit card use. Emphasis on responsible, which means always paying your balance in full at the end of the month. I can't stress this enough. On-time payments have a bigger impact on your credit than any other factor. And paying late can also get you trapped in a mountain of debt because the interest rate on a typical credit card is something like 18%. If you're the type of person that maybe struggles a bit with self-control, and you know that the second that card arrives in the mail, you're going to be spending like a madman or madwoman, well, I have some tips for you too. If you're this type of person, I recommend starting with a secured credit card. I'll get into what that means in a second. But seriously, just don't be irresponsible. If you did want to recklessly spend somebody else's money and bury yourself in debt, you'd be much better off taking out a personal loan and paying maybe 8% interest instead of 20% on a credit card. Basically, the best advice I can give is to just treat the card the same way as if it were cold, hard cash. Do this and you'll be okay. Anybody can be responsible. It just takes a little bit of self-restraint. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's talk about the benefits of responsible credit card use, because there are quite a few. Most importantly, using credit cards helps you to build credit. And this matters because having a good FICO score will save you a ton of money down the road. You see, the higher your credit score, the less interest banks will charge when lending you money. So when it eventually comes time to make a large purchase, say you want to buy a house or a car, having a credit score will save you a ton in interest charges. Another benefit of credit card use is that they are much better at protecting you against fraud as compared with, say, a debit card. Now, I am personally guilty of hanging on to my debit card way too long. For years, I just didn't see the need to have a credit card. And I was lucky. I never had my debit card stolen or any fraudulent charges made against it in all the years that I used it. But eventually, almost everybody will be hit with fraud. And if this does happen to you, you'll be much better protected if you're using a credit card versus a debit card. This is because it's generally going to be more difficult to reverse the transaction with debit. But when fraud occurs on a credit card, it's the bank's money that's been stolen and you're typically not liable for anything. With a debit card, on the other hand, you'll generally be liable for the first $50 of stolen money. And if you wait to report the incident, that amount can increase to as high as $500, depending on which bank you have. So if you stick with credit, you won't really have to worry much about theft. The last major benefit of credit card use is the rewards they provide. Now, there are all types of credit cards. Some give you straight cash back, meaning the credit card issuer pays you a flat 1% or 1.5% of how much you spent on the card that month. Some cashback cards also get a little bit more complicated and use rotating categories. So for example, you might get 5% cash back on all grocery store purchases for several months, and then the card will switch and start giving you 5% back at gas stations. Cashback rewards are the simplest to understand, but there's also credit cards that give you points that can be redeemed for certain type of purchases, like Chase Ultimate Rewards points. It's not so important that we understand all of these details now, but just know that credit cards offer benefits that reward you for using them. And you wouldn't otherwise get these benefits if you spent money on a debit card or if you spent cash. Let's talk about what to look for in a credit card when you're just starting out. I'm going to touch on a few important things here, but if you're anxious to see my suggestions for which cards to get, you can skip ahead using the timestamps in the video description. If you forget everything else, remember this: your first card should have no annual fee. And this is because it's important that you keep your first credit card open as long as possible, preferably your whole life. And that's just probably not realistic if your card comes with an annual fee requirement. The reason you want to keep your first credit card open for as long as possible is because your credit score is influenced by how long you've had accounts opened, where longer is better. And when you close credit accounts, they'll eventually get removed from your credit report, and then your score will likely fall as a result. So it's important that we stick with no annual fees when getting started. The next thing to look for is a credit card that's marketed towards people with no credit, fair credit, or students. If you've never had a credit card or a loan before, you're not going to be approved for a fancy card with lots of perks, and you're also not going to be given a high spending limit because the bank just doesn't know how responsible you are. If you've applied and been rejected from beginner cards, or if you have bad credit and are trying to rebuild, you could always get a secured credit card, which requires you to give the bank an upfront deposit that's refundable as collateral in the event that you don't pay. So, for example, if the credit limit on your secured card was $200, you might have to give the bank $200 to secure the card. That pretty much covers it. Some other folks might tell you to look at late fees or the APR, which is the annual percentage rate of interest you'll be charged if you carry a balance on the card. But I don't think it's important to consider either of those things, because if we use the card responsibly, we'll never be in a situation where we don't pay what we owe in full. Remember, if you pay the full amount that you owe on the credit card before the due date, you'll never pay a cent of interest. Okay, let's jump into my top 5 suggestions for which card to get when starting out. First up is the Discover It secured credit card. Because this is a secured card, you shouldn't have any problems being approved with zero credit history. If you have bad credit and you're looking to rebuild, this could also be a great option. I tend to think of secured credit cards as similar to riding a bike with training wheels. Once you have some experience, you'd never leave the wheels on, but they can be very helpful when you're first trying to get your balance. This card has no annual fee, and it also offers rewards, which is somewhat rare for a secured card. You'll get 2% cash back when you spend money at gas stations and restaurants, and 1% back on everything else that you purchase. And as a Discover user myself, I can say that it's super easy to redeem the cash back. You can request to have the money deposited in your bank account, or you can use it to decrease the amount of money that you owe on the card. Another great perk of this card is that it can be converted into an unsecured credit card down the road without having to cancel and open a new one. This is nice because it keeps your credit history length as long as possible. If I had to suggest one card and be done with it, this would be it. One more thing before we get into my next suggestion. If you don't like the idea of a secured card but you like Discover, they have several other unsecured cards in the Discover It lineup, like this card for students that offers better rewards than the secured version. Even with no credit, you're very likely to be approved if you have a regular source of income. My next card suggestion is the Capital One Quicksilver Secured. As of the filming of this video, this credit card is not available when searching the Capital One website, but it does exist and it's a pretty solid option. I'll drop a link below in the description if anybody's interested. Like the Discover card, this is great for folks who have zero credit history or bad credit and are looking to rebuild. It also has no annual fee, which is very important. The advantage of this card and why you might choose it over the Discover It is that it uses MasterCard, which is more widely accepted by merchants. And this is especially important if you travel outside of the United States, because very few people have ever heard of Discover outside of North America. The Quicksilver card also doesn't have a foreign transaction fee, which makes it great for travelers. In terms of rewards, the card offers a flat 1.5% cash back on purchases, and I can also attest to this being very easy to redeem in the app. I've been frustrated with the redemption process from some companies, like certain Citibank cards or American Express cards, because they force you to save up $20 or $25 worth of cash back before you can redeem it. Luckily, neither the Discover nor the Capital One cards have issues like this. The bottom line is if you want a secured card and you don't spend a lot of money at gas stations or restaurants, you might get more rewards from this card as compared with the Discover. The next card I recommend is the Pedal 2 credit card from WebBank. If you don't want a secured card, this no annual fee offering is a great alternative. This card is designed for people with no credit history whatsoever, and they've taken a creative approach to their approval process. Basically, instead of looking at a credit score, they ask for read-only access to a checking account, and then they use that information to create a cash score, which is a proprietary metric that somehow takes into account the consistency of your income and your bill pay activity. According to their website, quote, "If you have a credit score, we'll look at it. If you don't, we won't have enough information to make a decision, in which case we'll ask you to link your bank account so that we can take a look at your cash score. Your cash score is based on factors like the bills you pay and the money you make. We generate the score after linking your bank account in our application flow." If you're willing to let this company look at your banking activity, this could be a great way to get an unsecured credit card right out of the gate with zero credit history. In terms of rewards, the Pedal 2 card gives you 1% cash back on all purchases, and that amount increases to 1.25% after 6 months of on-time payments, and then increases again to 1.5% after 1 year of paying on time. They also offer 2 to 10% cash back at selected merchants, but whether this is useful or not to you will greatly depend on where you typically shop and if that lines up with the merchants that they have relationships with. If you have a bad credit history and you're looking to rebuild, you will not be approved for the Pedal 2. Folks that are looking to rebuild credit are meant to apply for the Pedal 1, which is very similar to the Pedal 2. When I did some research, I just thought that it gives you a lower possible credit limit, higher average interests, and worse cashback benefits. But other than that, it's identical. Next is the Deserve EDU MasterCard. This is another unsecured card that will approve you even if you have zero credit history. The catch is that this card is for students only, and you need to be actively enrolled to qualify. I looked around to see if this card had a proprietary scoring system like the Pedal card, but it appears that they don't look at any financial information from you. In fact, you don't even need to have a social security number to apply, which makes it a great choice for international students that are studying in the United States. I honestly don't know how they're doing this, but hey, it has no annual fee, it reports out to all 3 credit bureaus, and they'll even pay your Amazon Prime student membership for a year if you spend $500 or more on the card in the first 3 months after opening. In terms of benefits, it also offers 1% cash back on all purchases, but unlike the offerings from Discover and Capital One, you need to earn $25 worth of rewards before you're able to get a credit back. That would really annoy me if I had the card. But still, for a card that asks for nothing and doesn't require a credit score or even a social security number, well, it's not too bad. Rounding out my list is the Wells Fargo Active Cash credit card. Now, this is a bit of an aspirational card because you're going to need to have good credit in order to be approved. So this is not going to be your first card, but I'm including it on this list because I think it's the best cashback card on the market right now, and because it should be attainable after 1 or maybe 2 years of responsible credit card use. It takes the credit bureaus around 6 months of payment history before they'll generate a FICO score for you. But after that point, and assuming that you're responsible and you pay in full every time, it should not take too long to break a 700 credit score, which opens the door for a lot of high rewards credit cards. The main benefit of this Wells Fargo Active Cash card is that it gives you 2% cash back on all purchases. This is the highest flat rewards rate you can get as of the filming of this video. And while you can get higher amounts by strategically using cashback cards with rotating categories, I think it's best to start with simplicity in mind and not to overthink it. Then down the road, if you want to strategize your credit card use more, you could branch out into other cashback cards and even point-focused travel cards. I've noticed that there's been a lot of companies that are introducing 2% cashback cards lately, but I like the Wells Fargo Active Cash card because it has no annual fee, it doesn't require that you bank with Wells Fargo, nor does it limit the amount of rewards you can rack up. It also lets you redeem any amount at any time, and, most importantly, distinguishes itself from the other 2% cashback cards by having a sign-up bonus of $200 if you spend $1,000 on the card in the first 3 months. Citi's Double Cash is the major competitor that Wells Fargo is targeting with this card, but again, I like the Active Cash card more because of the sign-up bonus that it offers and because it doesn't require you to save up $25 in rewards before you can redeem them. To conclude, I recommend getting started as early as possible with credit cards and practicing responsible use, which means treating them like cash and paying in full before each due date. I would apply for one of the options above, either the secured or unsecured variety, and then spend the next year building your credit with it. At that point, you could branch out into higher earning cards, like the Wells Fargo Active Cash or similar. If you found this video to be useful, please smash that subscribe button below. It really helps me to grow. Thank you, and I'll see you all in the next one.